All right, guys, in today's video, we're going to be working on a coolant leak in this 2015 Chevrolet Sonic equipped with the 1.4 liter turbocharged engine. And if we take a look over here, we can see some residual coolant. Try not to wash it out with the flashlight, but if you zoom in here, you can hopefully see in the cavities of the casting of the transmission, there's some coolant sitting there. And then if we kind of pivot over a little bit and I come in on this side, I think you can see some right back in here. If I can get the light down there for you. There you go. All right, so we can't catch this leak live, so it's probably a slow leak that's only happening at highway speed, but I can tell enough to see that it's coming from this junction here. So it's either this heater hose or this plastic water outlet. So the first thing we're going to go do is get some room in here so we can see. We're going to remove this charge air hose coming from the intercooler to the throttle body. So we're going to get a 7mm and we're going to pull this clamp so that we can get this out of the way so we can get a better view of what's going on here. All right, so we'll snake in here around this connector, loosen this guy up just enough so we can get it to move off of the throttle body. There we go. Just kind of pull this guy up and out of the way so we can see what's going on down here. All right, let's see if I can find a place where this light will sit for you guys and me. If I come up under here, it is wet along this clamp. It is not wet on the pipe side. So I'm like 85% confident that it's just the hose and not a crack in this plastic nipple, but we won't be able to tell until we get this off. So let's go ahead and pull this heater hose off so that we can get a look at this nipple. All right, so bungeed this hose out of the way so he doesn't get in our way, and I've stuck something in here so that we don't inevitably drop something down this hose, and we put something here to keep stuff out of the throttle body as well. So this hose is attached to the water outlet here, and then it's going to snake up and connect to the firewall right back there. So there's a couple of options for removing it. This clamp is facing the firewall very conveniently. There is a tool that I have. We can go back there and pull just the clamp off. We could also take this whole elbow off. That's what the service manual would recommend you do. So I probably will go ahead and do that just because of the awkward angle of the clamp and all these other hoses in the way. So that means we're going to pull it off of this end first. I'm not going to drain the coolant. It'll be fine to drain right where it is. We got a catch pan positioned underneath the transmission already. So let me just get this guy moved off of here. Actually, just going to bring it forward because I don't think I can get it backwards. There's too many obstructions. We'll just leave it sit right there. Actually, while we got the clamp off before I pull it and it gets all wet, let me see if we can see any damage on the hose. Nothing immediately obvious. I'm going to have to go ahead and pull it off to be sure. All right, let me just make sure our pan is where we need it to be. Want to catch as much of this as you can. The problem with coolant on the ground is that it's poisonous to wildlife, so if you're doing anything outside, like we are outside the shop here, something invariably is going to come across it and want to lick it up. And it's just dangerous for wildlife, so you want to make sure that you can catch as much of it as you can, and when we're done, we'll get the hose out and get rid of the rest of it. I'm just using a pair of hose pliers to break the adhesion so it's easier for me to pull this hose off the nipple. There's just no room to work here, guys. Okay, there we go. All right. I want to try to have this be a controlled flow so I can make sure it's going in the pan. So we're going to leave it just like that. Pop underneath and make sure we're catching this stuff. Yep. Great. All right, now we can open it up a little bit more. We'll just let it pee out like that for a little bit. And then I'll bring you guys back. You know, we're going to do it in a controlled manner like this again so that we don't spill any coolant. All right, it looks like it's done as much as it's going to do like this. I'm going to go ahead and grab this clamp while I'm here. I'm going to run this hose down to see if there's anything left in it. Okay, so now's our first opportunity to take a look and see if this damage is just the hose, which is pretty inexpensive, or if we have a problem with this water outlet. Since it's plastic, it could also be at fault. I don't see anything immediately obvious, but your best tool is like a fingernail. So once we get this hose off out of here, I'll take the glove off and I'll see if I can feel any cracks, but immediately, superficially, I don't feel or see anything with the glove. Let's go ahead and keep going with the hose. All right, we got this end off. Now we want to get this back end. So like I was telling you guys before, I could use the same tool we used to get this clamp, but we'll go ahead and do it the service manual way and try to pull this elbow off. Once again, I got to hunt for something made of steel so we can get the light somewhere. Let's see if we can clip it on the fuel line here. I'm just going to come back here with a really long screwdriver, and I'm going to try to get this retaining ring popped off right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull it by hand just to make sure that it's all the way out. All right, and then take the adhesion on this guy and pull him out. Easy peasy. And we'll pull the hose up from this end. All right. So let's see if we can tell anything obvious. I mean, it's certainly the original hose. The original hose would have had this 9508, 9374 number on it. That's a discontinued number that's been superseded. I'm not seeing anything externally. I'm not even seeing anything internally. And yet it's leaking. And it's just started leaking. The owner's been driving like this for a long, long time. Yes, it's the hose. So look at the end here where you see the ribbing. And you can see here there's like bits of fabric that stick through the rubber. Watch right here when I squeeze the hose. See that liquid that's coming through the hose? Right there. So inside where this fabric is, coolant is wicking out through the end of the hose. That means somewhere along this crimp point it is entering the hose. It's just not visible from the outside. Could possibly be that little crack right there. We can't tell if that crack penetrates all the way through. But I'm going to go ahead and replace this. It's enough of circumstantial evidence to go ahead and condemn this guy. All right, let's go ahead and get it extracted from the elbow here. We'll just use a regular hose plier for this. This one's been on here since it was made. I can tell it's super, super tight. Okay. And let's see if we can get the elbow off without breaking that. You can also see that there's been a little bit of coolant leaking at this elbow. You see this orange crust? This is dried up Dex-Cool. So I still think we're on the right track here with replacing this hose. So something like this, I just want to give it a twist. Make sure it's well released adhesion-wise. Then we'll pinch it on the lower part of the hose and pull this guy off. And watch the hose fall down into the drain pan. And again, it's possible for any of this plastic stuff to crack. So we just want to make sure that that crusty material was definitely oozing past the hose. Best way to look for cracks is on the smooth inner bore of an elbow like this. If it was cracked, it would be very noticeable. Not seeing any cracks at all, just seeing some debris. It's probably also coming from the hose. Like that right there. Like a little piece of crud from the rubber. Wipe this up real quick, and I'll show you what we're replacing this hose with. All right, guys, we're going to replace this with a GM 9695-8209. It's the current number for this hose. We'll make sure that it's the same proportions, and it is. And then we'll transfer our two clamps over. Come on. Get off of there, jeez. Oh yeah, much nicer. Get this back on the elbow. Yeah, so you'll notice here these H symbols, or I symbols, depending on how you orient it, is the factory position of where they want the clamp to sit. They want it to sit in between those two lines, and they want the open point lined up with that mark, right? So we can go ahead and do this one. If we can get our pliers open enough. Right, and we'll position it just like we mentioned. Right on the money. So this guy, Un momento, por favor. Wasn't paying attention to the orientation. This way. It's got to go up against there. My bad. And now we'll put this on there. And see, this is going to be the wrong tool for this orientation just because there's not enough clearance. So we'll have to use the remote tool instead to finish it the rest of the way. Might not even be able to use this tool. It's a really awkward position. I'll back it off a little bit, but you guys get the idea, right? So it's going to sit like that, just the way we found it. And then we'll slide the other clamp into position on this end so that we can put it back onto the water outlet. All right, just like that. So I'm just going to swizzle this guy and then we'll reinstall it. All right, we've got our clamp exactly where it needs to be, and we're going to get our little locking clip back up that slid down when we were doing that. Let's snake this guy back in just the way it came out. I know I'm blocking your view, guys, but bear with me. There's not a whole lot of clearance back here. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get it mounted back to this firewall port. Okay, and push that top pin in and lock it in. And we're going to come back down here and guide it onto the nipple of the water outlet. You guys can see where we're at. Let's see if I can get it without blocking your view. Get on there. There's a little stop for the hose right here. And you're going to push the hose up until it's against the stop. All right, I'm going to get the other tool and I'll bring the clamp into position. All right, let's get this last clamp. Get centered on there, give it a squeeze, and move it over to the silkscreen mark. Good. I think we've got it right where it belongs. Let me kind of get over on this side. Yep, looks good. All right, now what we're going to do before we put the air hose back, we're going to take some regular water to flush all of this coolant out, and then we'll take some compressed air. And if you don't have compressed air, you can just do some shop rags or towels to sop up whatever's left in these cavities. We'll want to get all that dried out because that's how we'll be able to tell if it's still leaking. All right, guys, so this is about where you should be with cleanup. So I can get the light down here without washing things out, right? All these different crevices we've dried out. We don't have coolant sitting anywhere, so we'll have a very obvious way to tell if we still have a problem here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and reconnect the charge air hose. All the way to the back. We'll tighten that up in a minute. What we're first going to do is top off the coolant. So on the Sonic model, the reservoir here, if you look on the side of the reservoir in the front, hopefully I'm not washing this out with the light, but you'll see an arrow, a little icon of an open book with a letter I, and then another arrow. What they're trying to tell you is if you look in the owner's manual, you'll see that the fill line is the seam of this reservoir tank. So you fill it up to the seam. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. All right. More plastic. All right, we're going to be topping this off with AC Delco Dex-Cool 5050. That's an AC Delco 105027 number or a GM 1237 8390. And again, we only need to top it off until it gets to where those two arrows are on the reservoir. All right, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and start it. It might have to be topped off again after the water pump circulates some of the coolant through. When you put the pressure cap back on, make sure you don't cross-thread it. It's plastic on plastic. And as you go to and tighten it, when it gets to the very bottom, it should click. All right, we're going to go ahead and give it a start and check for leaks. All right, so it's already gone down just a little bit as the engine starts up here. I'm going to check this firewall connection first. Make sure we don't see any coolant leaking from back there. And we're going to check our original problem. Try to get this again where it doesn't wash out for you guys. It's so far. Move this so it doesn't wash everything out. So far, no leak at that clamp point. I'm going to reach under here and just feel if there's any moisture. Nothing so far. All right, I'm going to take it on a test drive. Check for leaks again and do a final top off. We're also going to need to torque the clamp on this air hose. All right, guys, we took it for a 5-mile test drive. Still nothing evident on the firewall side. Looks really good. Nothing on top of the transmission. She's gurgling a little bit because we need to add some more coolant. Nothing happening around the new hose and the clamp. So I think that we made the right call by replacing just the hose. The water outlet seems okay. Give it back to the owner, have him continue to drive it. Should be fine. All right, let's take care of this 7mm clamp. It turns out for this particular clamp, there's not a specific torque value. It just says to make it snug. So 2-finger is all you need to do. When it feels good and tight with 2 fingers, you're done. As long as this thing doesn't move or come off, it's fine. Let me show you some information out of the service manual, and then we'll wrap this up. All right, so this inlet heater hose replacement is how the service manual walks you through it. It's just showing you the same things I took you through. The hose, the clamp, and the quick connect. The hose, the clamp, and the nipple of the water outlet. And they're telling you need to have some hose clamp pliers, which they're talking about the remote kind like I showed you. They talk about removing it as an intact piece, which we elected to do just because of the positioning of the clamp. They mentioned that you have to remove the clamp from the nipple here, and then you can remove the whole section, and then installing it is just the reverse. So they're installing it all as one piece with the clamp pre-positioned the way we showed. Really the only thing to take note of here, you noticed I put this into position in the orientation vertically the way we found it. They mention about the 12 o'clock position is important because there's a little notch in there. If you don't line that notch up, you actually can't get this clip to snap in. So if you have trouble getting it to snap back in or having trouble getting it to stay on the nipple, that's because you didn't clock it the way it says here in this note. So just make sure you pay attention to that. And then for a blow up of the operation of that, that's this guy right here. So this is that little piece that we use the screwdriver to lift off. It can actually come off and fits in 2 notches and then slide on. So it's okay if you separate the 2 of them. And then on the hose that we just tightened, which is this guy right here, right? They just tell you to tighten the clamp. There's no specific torque value associated with that particular clamp. So we're done with this repair. It's pretty easy and straightforward. It's not too expensive on genuine GM parts. There's no reason to go any cheap Chinese aftermarket stuff here. I'll put links in the description to the parts we used and some of the special tools that we had to have in this particular video. If you've got questions or comments, leave them below and I'll try to help. If this did save you some money and allowed you to do this job yourself, I'd appreciate you paying it forward by hitting that like button. And as always, thanks for watching.